All right. What's going on, everybody? Here's another episode of Cosplay Bites, the show that's all about cosplay, convention news, and all sorts of other nerdy topics. So for this special episode, I have with me the host of fellow cosplay podcast, CosPod. I've got Amber and Valerie over here. How you doing?
We're good. Thanks for having us.
No problem. Yeah. So yeah, the way this came about was that I was on their little roundtable discussion that they had. Uh it was last week, and that'll be up I think within another week. So
hmm
definitely look forward to that. But before we jump into what I wanted to talk about for today, this is just housekeeping stuff. You guys can listen to Cosplay Bites on a number of platforms. I'm trying to stick it to a couple of main ones, but it's available on Anchor, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. And if you guys rate and review the show, that would help a lot. Yeah, and then over on my blog, Lightning Palace, you can take a look at some of the latest posts that I had from this past week, such as features on Azura Cosplay's Score Bunny, League of Larty's Pajama Guardian Soraka, and then upcoming I have write-ups on Azulet's Cami and Yayahan's Misato from Evangelion. And before just to get this out of the way, also shout out to my patrons over on Patreon. I got Coralia Jade, Katyuska Moonfox, Mink the Satyr, Nicole Marie Jean, Noah, Shaylin, and Oh My Sophie. So that takes care of all of that. So, yeah, you just get into it. Just to double check, are you guys all good? Like mics are working and everything?
Think so.
To the best
Okay.
of my knowledge.
Okay. So, yeah. So, tell us a little bit about yourselves. So from what I learned, like after we did the roundtable, I did a little poking around your website. So, yeah, you girls have been doing this for a while. Like, I counted like 8 seasons worth of stuff.
Yeah, we're actually in the process of wrapping up our 8th season pretty soon, and we're getting close to 200 episodes. We've been on the air for almost 8 years, and that's kind
Oh
of
my
crazy to
gosh.
think about. So we're definitely the longest running cosplay oriented podcast out there by leaps and bounds.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
And actually, Amber is the one who first came up with the idea.
It was an accident, I swear. I actually didn't even want to be on the podcast. I wanted something I could listen to, because back in the day when we were much younger and cosplay wasn't as much of a thing, there weren't really very many cosplay podcasts or any sort of serial shows to listen to that had things like tutorials or interviews or anything else for those who were really interested in cosplay. And I was like, hey, there's this really awesome cosplayer. She's really accomplished. I should interview her and kick off the show. And
Right.
yeah, it kind of happened from there.
Yeah. So obviously, aside from running the podcast, you're also both well, you're veterans of the cosplay community. So, when did you both get started?
For me, I started about almost 11 years ago. I went to Project Acon, which is a convention that's based in Texas, and it's one of the oldest running anime conventions in the country. And when I went in, I saw people dressed up, and I had no clue what was going on, what they were doing. I was mystified by it. So I asked someone who was in a Sailor Moon outfit, and I was like, "Hey, are you like here promoting something? Are you like working a booth?" And she was like, "No, this is called cosplay." And she told me everything about her outfit, where she got it from, what she made it from. And at that point, I was like, I need to make something for myself. I want to do this just to try it out. And I've never looked back ever since.
That's great.
So I'm a cosplay elder. I've actually been cosplaying since I was 16 because I am a Rennie, and Renaissance Fair peeps also really, really enjoy cosplay, even though they don't call it that.
That they
usually
do,
call it
yeah.
LARPing.
Yep.
So I've actually been cosplaying for almost 20 years now.
Oh wow. Yeah, that's a long time. um, any favorite cosplay that you had to pick out of your creation closet, so to speak?
Ooh, that's an
Or
excellent question, because that's a hard question.
that always seemed to is like most cosplayers when I ask that, they're like, "You're making it's like I'm choosing between children. Why would you do this?"
Well, you kind of are choosing between children. If your cosplays, take that much work and effort, it basically becomes like your child.
It
Yeah.
really does. And actually, yesterday I was in the process of cleaning out one of my closets so I could make room for more costumes. And it is just officially the cosplay closet. I don't keep anything else but cosplay in there.
Yeah.
I guess for me, it's kind of a toss up, and they're both Final Fantasy costumes because I love Final Fantasy. They're both from Final Fantasy 14. One of them is an NPC character called Kane Senna, and I'm happy about that costume because of the technical difficulty with it. And every time I wear it, I always feel like the character.
That's good.
The other one is a songbird outfit that's also from the game. It's not from an NPC, but it's one of the outfits you can wear. And it's kind of an idol costume. And that
Okay.
one to me was a huge challenge. And I had to get over a lot of mental blocks to make that thing. And it made me appreciate everyone else who makes and wears idol costumes, because those things are a nightmare.
Yeah.
I have nothing but appreciation for all the men and women who wear idol costumes. But when I made it and when I wear it, I can understand the appeal. It makes you feel like a superstar.
Yeah.
Probably those two. That may change in like a month.
Okay. All right.
So my favorite is actually really easy. It is my Sky Sorceress that I recently made, and it's because it is not only my cleanest work, but it's the first time I actually worked with bling.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes you just have to take a costume and make it 20% cooler and just add things that are shiny to it. And
Yeah.
sometimes that's very enjoyable, as I have found.
It is. There's a zen to just throwing a bunch of shiny stuff onto a costume.
All the glitter, all the jewelry, all of it.
There is a ton of jewelry on that thing. I'm actually afraid of like losing pieces of it.
Yeah, that brings a whole other layer to outfits, especially when you're putting it on. And I know I ran into this a lot when I brought outfits, because it just you always seem to forget one thing. It just seems to happen. Like you triple check, you double check your packages and all your suitcases, and you get to the con and you're putting on the outfit, and then you're looking at yourself. It's like, then the sudden realization is that you have dread all over your face, and oh my gosh.
Can I just say that's one of my ultimate cosplay nightmares that I constantly have whenever it comes to con time, crunch time.
Mhm.
I always have nightmares about forgetting pieces of my cosplay, and it's always crucial pieces. It's never just like a small piece that I could do with that.
Right.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
not like, here's an accessory. It's like, oh, I forgot the ring. That's okay.
Right.
This is why I've become super paranoid, and I always make a list. And I get made fun of for this, but you know what? I have never forgotten anything ever since I started making lists.
That's true. Yeah.
So, nah.
Right. So what goes into, I know between both of our shows, we all have our little process of, recording it and making the episode. So like, what goes into like producing an episode of CosPod?
That's entirely a Val question.
He
is the producer.
Yep, I've kind of become the producer of the show. A lot of it starts with trying to come up with the outline to figure out what our main topic is going to be, and ensuring that we have enough variety throughout the season to give a little bit of everything. So I'll go through our episode list, see the things that we've done recently, go through a list of topics that we've come up with that will probably mesh in well. Send it off to Amber, and then if we have any changes that we need to make, we make those changes. We hop onto Google Hangouts so we can have live interaction with our audience while we record the episode. Then I do the editing, and a week later, it magically appears on our website.
Woohoo!
It's pretty straightforward process, and I think it's because we've been doing this for so long, we've kind of become adept to it.
Yeah, if you see our
Right.
first episodes, they are not anywhere close as smooth as even, your show is, completely smooth like silk compared to some of our earliest.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah.
There's a huge difference because initially we started out doing it in person together, where it'd be the two of us, like either standing or at a table talking to the camera. And it just got really, yeah, it got really awkward really quickly.
Oh boy.
We had our topics written out by hand on a piece of poster board that was taped to a wall that was opposite us, right behind the camera, almost like a very early manual teleprompter.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
It was the only way we could stay on track. And I remember those first couple of episodes, I kept thinking in the back of my head was, why did I suggest we do this with video? This was a dumb idea. We could have just done this with audio.
Oh, man.
But yeah, over the years, once we've kind of figured out what our process was going to be, how we fine-tuned it, and it seems like it's much smoother now compared to how it was.
That's good. That's good.
It's easier to edit, easier to manage, which is nice.
Yeah.
And there's still plenty to talk about even after 8 years of cosplay, where, as you've talked about on your show and gone through, as you see and evaluate people's cosplays, there's a ton of things that have changed in the world of cosplay. So there's always plenty to cover.
Yeah. And even still, like, I started this a year. Why did I hesitate? A year. I started this a year ago after Katsucon, and would I still want to cover Katsucon as an episode for my show? Of course, because I don't think the venue's ever going to change, but I mean the cosplays, the trends do. So you just see a lot of people just gravitate toward different franchises. It just all depends on what comes out in the media by the time next year rolls around. Same with PAX East. It's talk about it last year, talk about it this year. It's just a bunch of the games that have been coming out and all the prevalence of indie developers and whatnot. So yeah, I don't think I'm going to be running out of topics to cover anytime soon.
That's kind of the nice thing too, is that with cosplay, it's always fluid, it's always changing. There's always something new to learn. There's always new materials. It seems like every season we get something different to work with. And that in itself is also just fun, not only as hosts for our podcast, but just as cosplayers ourselves. The first time I got to try foam clay, I was completely mesmerized by it. I was like, oh, we need more stuff like this. I need more things like this. And it comes out, it's new content all the time that we can always utilize.
Yeah.
And there's a ton of new cosplayers every year too, the up-and-comers that have all of these new takes and innovations on cosplay, new ways to use old materials. And there are really creative, talented people out there.
Yeah. Yeah, in my time cosplaying, I just distinctly remember when Warbler started to get really big and popular through Kamui Cosplay using it, and then Yaya bringing it over. Yeah, I just remember ordering from cosplaysupplies.com and getting that in and working with it for some of my armor builds, and then Black Warbler came along with all its much more smoothness in material, and yeah, it's crazy. Now you got this HD foam from Stephen K. Smith props that he developed, and it's just crazy.
They've got transparent Warbler now too.
Yeah. Some cosplayers have used that, and then they dyed it certain colors so that it just kind of eliminates the process of painting.
Yep, you can make it light up too.
Oh boy.
There's more lights, more sound, more bling,
more shiny things.
More shiny things to put on your outfits.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this is another probably choosing between children kind of question. But All right, I'm not gonna say if you had to pick a couple of episodes of your show that were really memorable, or like really your favorites, if you had to pick.
Usually the After Dark's pretty funny.
Yeah, our After Darks are really, really hilarious. And our After Dark episodes are usually we've reserved those for Halloween. So that's kind of like our we can talk about anything, say anything episodes. Even though we say that, we still tend to keep it kind of PG.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fair. Yeah.
Those are our uncensored episodes. For those who don't know, we tend to let a little more loose with our language and our topics, so they're considered not safe for work, whereas normally our podcast is pretty darn family friendly.
Yeah.
For
I
me,
mean,
this is a no-brainer for me on this one. It's when we made the duct tape
Uh-oh.
dummy for Amber.
Oh yeah.
It was probably the most fun I had because we were being silly the entire time. And we were being informative too, but it was just silliness.
I
duct
was
tape
sitting there.
dummy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, what's that about?
So I needed a dress form made of myself because I have somewhat awkward body proportions compared to commercial body forms. And I was like, hey, let's do this for the audience. Val, here, you can wrap me up in duct tape and then we'll stuff it and make a dress form of myself. And all I remember thinking as she was wrapping me up in the duct tape is, oh, please don't cut any of my hair off.
I'm very careful with scissors. Thank you very much.
Oh
It's
man.
just one of those things where, yes, I had trust, but I also really didn't want to lose any hair,
I think we were both giggling the whole time.
which also makes it harder to cut.
It does.
Yeah. Oh boy.
I just it was one of our earlier episodes too, so it wasn't like it was
Yes.
fancy or fantastic, but I think it was one of the ones where we were starting to make that transition, and the quality was getting better, so it's still good to watch.
All right.
I think my favorite episode is actually probably episode 100. We had our really big milestone. We didn't even think we would ever hit 100 episodes, let alone we're about to hit 200 episodes this Halloween, actually. But seeing all of the videos and remembrances that the fans posted to us honestly made both of us cry, like
Yeah.
straight up tears down the face, like, wow,
Aww.
we've touched all of these lives. And for as much as people were like, you've touched our lives, like our audience has sincerely touched ours even more than that. And it's kind of hard to express sometimes. So just seeing that just really warmed our hearts, and it was very touching.
Yeah.
It's super sweet and just touching anytime somebody comes to us up at a convention and says, "Oh my God, I listened to you." And my usual response is, "Why?" It's like, I can't believe you are listening to us. We're just two goobers talking about cosplay. And it just always brings a smile to my face. It's really hard to describe it, like Amber said.
No, I can feel that 'cause it's definitely also a giant motivator, especially for me, like I've had certain days where I just having struggles, just getting guests on board and just trying to plan things with them. But then just like I got a couple of like local friends who say that if they listen to the show and they're like, "Oh, dude, you really have something here. Like, keep it up. Like, your voice is really good for radio. Like, keep this going." Like, oh my gosh, thank you.
Yeah, it just takes that little bit of motivation to keep you going.
Yeah. So, has both of you, as a show, have you guested at conventions before?
We've actually guested as a show.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Yes, we have actually been at 2 different cons as a show. We were at GlitchCon as a guest a few years ago, and we were also at a local convention called CCon, which was a local comic convention, as a show as well. And that was really awesome since a lot of the younger kids were getting into cosplay. It was more of a kid-friendly convention, and it
Right.
was really cool to see all of the superheroes out in force. And they were just having a blast. It's the best part
Yeah.
of conventions is being able to interact with all the guests and see them in cosplay and see them get just as excited as we do.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, what's that like? Like, do you guys like get signed up for like submitting panels or do like live recordings from the convention itself, or?
We have not done a live recording yet. We sometimes think about it, but then we're never too sure about the technical logistics because sometimes things don't work. There may be an issue with Wi-Fi, so it's always kind of spotty.
Oh yeah.
But usually what happens is the convention coordinators will contact us through our email since all of our info is kind of spattered everywhere for CosPod. And they say, hey, we have this guesting opportunity. We'd like to bring you along. Here's what we can provide you. And usually they ask us to host a panel or two. I think at GlitchCon, we ended up doing 3 panels, one together and then one each separately, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
Yeah, and then at CCon, we hosted a panel together, and then I was on a discussion panel afterwards. And then sometimes, like depending on the size of the convention, because we're also cosplayers, they may ask us to also assist with helping with their judging for cosplay contests. So that's kind of nice too.
Huh. That's pretty sweet. Okay. Let's see here. Yeah, I think I covered like some of the just basic stuff I wanted to talk about with you guys. Yeah, I guess we can move on to the next part I have here. Now it's labeled franchise design / teach a technique. So what I'm thinking is that maybe both of you can go through one interesting technique or thing that you learned in one of your recent outfits.
Now the thinking.
now the thinking. Heavy loaded question.
It is.
If you don't mind, Val, I can go while you think of yours.
Oh yeah, go for it. If you already know, you are free to start.
Yeah, go for it.
Since with my Sky Sorceress, if you guys have seen in progress shots of that costume, you can see that it uses a ton of puffy paint. Something that I actually found out recently that you can do is almost faux embroidery. And what you do is you sketch out a design on your piece of fabric and you put puffy paint over it. And you can choose pretty much any color of puffy paint, but it helps if you do it in the same color that you want your finished design to be in. And then what you do is you take a good hand needle, probably a sharp needle, and thread, and then you stitch over the puffy paint so that it gives it a sort of raised appearance. Now, this is a very slow process, so please have a marathon of your favorite show or 2 or 3 ready to do this, because it's nowhere near as fast as a machine can embroider, of course. But if you don't have $200-300 to pay for a machine embroidery, then you can always do it this way, and it actually looks really cool, and it's sturdy, which is also a wonderful thing in the world of cosplay because it means it won't break as soon as you sit down. So
Amen to
I thought
that.
was really cool.
You got something, Val?
I think I do, because this is something that very few people will ever run into. But when you run into this problem, you will now know the answer to it. With my Kane Senna costume, that one is velvet on top of velvet applique. Velvet on top of velvet is the worst 2 things you could possibly do to make applique happen, because with velvet, if you're not careful with your stitching, it can make the pile really tough. And sometimes it'll actually take off some of that pile, so it looks like you got bare spots on your velvet. It's really difficult to work with when you're trying to do that many tiny little stitches, so that way everything looks nice and neat and clean. So you can't really like heat and bond the 2 stuff together. You really don't want to hot glue things together, because then that's just going to make a big old mess and make all of the velvet flat. Plus you have the potential of it falling off with heat. So sticking the 2 together is really, really difficult and does require sewing. I know most people hand sew that stuff, but it's very challenging to keep it all nice and tightly knit. So I did an experiment, and I figured out that if you attach the 2 together, like velvet on top of velvet, with tacky glue, because it's clean, it dries clear. If you get a little bit off the side on accident, you can easily wash it out with a little bit of water. And it surprisingly sticks together really, really nicely. So nicely that you can then take that applique, move it under your sewing machine, and slowly do your stitches so that's nice, tight, and neat and clean. And you'll be fine. And I
Wow.
was just like, this is like the most miracle thing I have ever figured out in my life, because doing that type of stitching by hand is incredibly tedious and very, very slow. And I really wanted to do it with a machine so I wouldn't waste my life doing this.
Right.
So I was
right.
happy to see that I could make a stabilizer using tacky glue, and tacky glue was my savior for that costume.
Side note, please do not hot glue velvet together.
Please don't use hot glue on your costume unless it's like on like plastics. Don't use it on fabric. You break
Yeah.
our hearts.
Yeah. Oops. I did.
I think everyone has at some point or
At one
another.
point.
Yeah, it's kind of the mark of, as you're learning cosplay, and you do these early things, and then you look back and you're like, oh, that was a bad idea. Whoops.
And we're not
Yeah.
knocking hot glue as a material. Hot glue
Oh
is actually
no!
amazing, just maybe not so much on fabric.
Please don't use it on fabric.
It's fine if it's like a life-saving thing and you have no other choice, I guess.
It's like if you're in an emergency and you're about to go across the stage for a cosplay contest and something fell off, but someone's like, hey, I've got hot glue, and you're okay with it, like, bring on the hot glue. Let's go.
Right. I think I did that because I did a Meta Knight Kajinka one, the full-on purple cape, and I bought some bias tape, with yellow bias tape for his trim. And I mean, I didn't know any better, so I was like, yeah, hot glue, let's do that. I mean, there are like blotches of hot glue that like seep through on top of the thing, and I didn't care. It
Hey,
was it was
as long as
really
you're finding fun with it. I mean, it's really like it. At the end of the day, it's your costume, and you do what you want with it. If you're having fun, you're having fun.
yeah. And it's funny because I remember because I had the purple cape with the yellow tape on it, and then I had to draw his symbol on the back of the cape. I did it with paint, but little did I know, because I did this in my house on top of a table, but like whenever I do stuff like that with painting, I always put newspaper to like protect the cloth. I did the painting, it's all done, and then the newspaper got stuck, and it ended up being like attached to the fabric.
Yep.
The good news is, I mean, this was the inside of the cape, so no one knew.
We've both done that.
Yep.
I can hide my shame. Oh man.
Incidentally, if that ever happens to anybody else, you can actually, once the paint has set, you can use water and simply soak the newspaper off, and the paint will remain as long as it is not water-based.
Oh. Yeah, future tip.
Paper will pretty much just dissolve away.
Yep. As far as franchise design goes, so that's mainly me asking the two of you. I mean, I haven't really asked as much in some of my episodes because usually the teacher technique is a good enough, like takes up a good portion of time. But if you both had to choose one type of like franchise that had just amazing like costume design, or it's just something that speaks to you that you like really want to make an outfit out of it, or maybe you have, what would you have to pick? Because I know for me, it would have to go to Final Fantasy. Like, despite the obsession with zippers and belts and all the crazy stuff, some of the designs are just like really, really awesome.
Yeah, mine hand down, Final Fantasy. I think that's pretty much all I'm known for at this point is Final Fantasy costumes. My very first costume was the Red Mage artifact armor from Final Fantasy XI, which was a really poor decision because that's a very difficult costume to make.
Oh gosh.
And one day I'll remake it because that thing was atrocious. But it seems like every single year I have at least one or two Final Fantasy costumes that I make. And I think the only game that I haven't made a costume from, 7, 9, 9's been on a hold. I want to make one, but it keeps waffling. 12 and 13.
Really? I'm shocked at 7.
I'm not. What's really funny is I'm not a big fan of 7. I love Tifa Lockhart. Like, she's my favorite character out of the entire series. I just don't like the game very much.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. That's controversial. I like 8 more. Eight's
That's
way
even
better.
more controversial. Oh my gosh.
8 is way better. Just saying. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's just there's just something about Final Fantasy, and it's always been a favorite of mine since I was a kid. I was one of the few that actually got started with like the original game in Japanese, and I had a friend help me translate while we
Oh
were
my gosh.
playing. Yeah, I mean, and I've been obsessed with that franchise since the beginning, and I love the characters, I love the stories, I love how it there's always something amazing and over the top that happens. 14 in particular has been my most recent obsession because of just how unique all of the designs are. They're very, very detailed. I love that you can go into the game and you can see seam lines. Like, most video games, you don't get to see that. You just have to
Yeah.
assume where things are cut and stitched together. But here you like you can see the closures, you can see all the details, you can kind of zoom in and have a general idea of what fabrics they're using. And I think that's uber cool. It's gotten to the point of when I take commissions, like 90% of my commissions are Final Fantasy 14. I've kind of made a name for myself just making these costumes, and I get a blast out of doing every single one of them. So if I could just do nothing but Final Fantasy costumes for the rest of my life, I would be 100% okay with that.
So, what do you think of what you've seen for the 7's remake?
Oh, they're going to milk that cow until they're all dead. That
Yeah.
I'm not going to even bother buying it because this is only one episode. This is not the whole thing. I'm
It's
just
not. No.
yeah, I'm gonna wait until all of it's been released and it's all
Oh.
got one compilation, and then that compilation is down to $29.99. Then I'll get it.
Yeah, they're probably gonna. It's the original game. Was that 3 disc?
It was 3 discs.
Yeah, they're probably gonna do it like that. Because supposedly the first game ends right at the end of disc 1. So, yeah.
It looks shiny. That's about all I got for it.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say like you'd never cosplayed from 7 before, so
Nope.
did none of the new designs speak to you, like Tifa's redesign
Her
or?
redesign is really nice, and I think just like the little touches that they did to the characters was quite good. I appreciate all the additional details with like the accessories on all of the characters, like because even Barrett's wearing some different necklaces. Cloud's got on some different bracelets and charms. So I like those little touches that they added in to kind of make the characters come more to life compared to their blocky version from the PS1.
Right. What about you, Amber?
So I've been really kind of hooked on the character designs of Fire Emblem lately. They
Oh
have
gosh.
great costume designs and great character designs to go with it. If I had unlimited patience, I would say Clamp.
Oh, okay.
But it's one of those things where I look at it and it's just like, that would take me a lifetime to make that one costume. I don't know if I have the patience to sit down and do it. Let's do something that takes just a little bit less time and a little bit less effort. Yeah, let's go with Fire Emblem. I love shiny,
Alright.
but there's something to be said for comfort and my ability to make them in a timely manner.
Yep. Always a factor.
And Clamp
Always
is
a factor.
definitely one of those where it becomes a time factor. It's kind of like Sakizo level of craftsmanship, where you're
Oh
just
god.
like, what else can we throw on these outfits?
Yeah. Or like a Zach Fisher designed. How many
Mhm.
spikes can I put on this thing?
The more the merrier.
And I enjoy torturing cosplayers.
It's always nice to look at, maybe just not quite as nice to make.
Exactly.
Yep. Yeah, I know I keep seeing Zach mention online about his next project for BlizzCon, like his next big group roping in cosplayers. And I'm just like, oh, this is gonna be fun to look at. Probably not fun to make, but yeah.
It's always fun to look at it.
Yep. All right. Any other info or topic you girls want to touch upon, or?
Just wanted to say we are excited for Halloween coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Halloween's our favorite time of year. It's my favorite holiday.
Oh, okay.
It's the cosplayers' holiday, except that we can't decide what to wear because we cosplay every other day except Halloween, which is the one day that we can't decide which of our cosplays we want to take with us.
So then just some say, oh, that's my day off.
It is myself.
There you go. Yeah, this is my normal costume for the day. Well, the hard part is, like, especially with Halloween and being cosplayers, is that we usually do these things from geeky things like that people don't really associate with. I mean, with the exception of superheroes, now that that's been more mainstream lately, or Star Wars, because you can just say, oh, you're from Star Wars, regardless of what the character is. Like, nobody's going to know that I'm this anime character from Evangelion. They don't know that.
No.
So it's just live action movie comes out.
Right. So it's just a matter of trying to find things to wear that people will recognize so you don't feel like the odd potato.
Right. Right.
But there's something to be said for, cosplaying for candy.
Right?
Yeah.
You're just doing it for the candy, man. If you want candy, come to my house and anything Star Wars, you'll get 2 handfuls. It's a guarantee.
All right, kids, listen up. Go to Valerie's house. Dress up as Star Wars characters on Halloween.
And I give out good candy.
You got 3 months. Get ready.
Plenty of time.
Plenty of time.
It's just enough time to make one cosplay.
Exactly.
Go to the store and buy something. Quick.
I am totally okay with that.
Yeah. Oh, boy. Well, I guess we could wrap this up. Yeah, thank you girls both so much for being on my show and letting me be on yours. It was really fun, and I hope you girls had fun too.
We did. Thank you so much for having us. This has been a blast.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
Great,
we love
great.
Talking shop.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Same here. So if they want to find CosPod and like listen to it, where can they go?
So there's all sorts of places. I guess I will take this since I'm usually the person that goes, you can find us on any of our social media, which you can find. So you can find us primarily on cospod.org. That is our main website. It's also where you can find links to all of our social media if you want to interact with us. We've also got links to our YouTube channel where you will find not only episodes of our show, but all sorts of panels and videos that we have recorded from other conventions when we have served as press. So that way you don't only hear from us, but you hear perspectives from all these other cosplayers who have some really awesome things to teach us. So again, that is cospod.org. You can also just Google us, CosPod. I'm pretty sure we're almost the entire first page of results.
I think we are.
Nice. Well, I mean, if they watch this YouTube video, they're going to see the CosPod logo, so
yes,
they'll find it one way or another.
We are visible on the internet.
And you can find me on Cosplay Bites. Again, it's available on all of the Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and there's also my blog, Lightning Palace, thelightningpalace.blogspot.com, and at Lightning Palace on Twitter and Lightning Palace blog on Instagram. Oh, and there's also the new Facebook page I created for the show. So, yeah, thank you guys for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.